In this video, I'm going to show how to use the Actions and Workflow modules to send Drupal site content to a mailing list. First, you'll need to install and enable both the Actions and Workflow modules. You'll also need a mailing list. There are several email solutions for Drupal, but since our site doesn't have much need for user registration, we've gone with a more robust external mailing list. We've chosen Mailman, but you could just as easily go with Google Groups, Yahoo Groups, or another mailing list. We're using Drupal 4.7 on this site, so enabling these modules automatically installs their database tables. Now that the modules are installed, the first thing that we want to do is create an action. As an aside, we use the Magic Menus module to float the administrator menu on this site. You can now see that we've got menu items for workflow and actions. We click Actions, and we can see that the module has done some setup of its own, adding all of the default actions. There are actions here to change the publish, moderation, sticky, and promote state for nodes, as well as an action to increment the workflow state. We're going to create a new action to send an email. We add a recipient for the message. We'll just send this to the mailing list. A subject line, and the message. I've just pasted mine in here, but you can see that we've got a few variables that we can stick in. This message will contain the teaser as well as the node URL, which will allow the reader to come back to the site for the full content. At the bottom of the text area, you can see the list of variables that you can use in your message. We can save that. I should probably name this something more descriptive, since I might want to create different actions to send different types of email messages. I'm going to call this one Send Announcement Email. And I'm also going to change the recipient to myself for testing purposes. And I'll add the title of the content to the subject line. Variable substitution wasn't working in the subject line in the Actions module when I started this videocast, but I've fixed it and submitted a patch, so hopefully it'll be fixed with the Actions distribution by the time you see this. The next thing to do is to create the workflow itself. We'll name this one Announcement. And we want this workflow to show up on both the workshop and story node types on our site. Now we create the states for this workflow. A workflow for something like a newspaper could have many different states for things like submitted, accepted, edited, proofread, and finally published. But our workflow will just have two states, unsent and sent. Now we can add actions that will get triggered by changes to this workflow. We need to set up transitions to define which users can move the content to which workstates and when. This is probably the most confusing part of the workflow module, but it's also the most powerful. We could use it to set up so that only users with the editor's role could move an item to the edited state, and then only proofreaders could move to the proofread state, and only publishers could actually publish. Our workflow will be simpler than that. When an item is created by any user, it should automatically go to the unsent state. Then, once it's in the unsent state, it will be possible for either the author or the site administrator to move it to the sent state. Actually, anonymous and authenticated users aren't really creating content on our site, so I'll turn those off. And then once it's in the sent state, it should not be possible for anyone to move it back to unsent. We can also set permissions here for which users will be able to view the Workflow tab for a node. Now we can finally associate actions with this workflow. Here you can see the possible transitions between work states for this workflow. And all of the actions that we saw previously are now here. We want our action to get triggered when a user moves from the unsent state to the sent state. We click the Add button, and now our action shows up here. It would be possible to add more actions if we wanted to. Now we can click in and edit one of our nodes. You can see there's now an announcement section of the page that shows the unsent and sent radio buttons. It's also possible to add a comment here that'll show up in the workflow log. We click Sent and submit the page. Let's switch over to my mail application and see if I got it. There it is. So now you can see it's got the teaser and the link to the page. We click on the link to the page, and we get the full page content. So now Lullabot visitors can sign up for a mailing list, and we can easily let them know when we've got new content on the site. The system's also really flexible because not all of the mailing list content needs to come from Drupal. We're still able to send messages directly to the mailing list, but we've got an easy new option to keep subscribers up to date.